Alrighty. We're in the top five now.
Top five.
Number five.
So number five. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to curse on our podcast. I didn't ask you about that.
I think I cursed already, so don't worry about it.
Okay. Well, when you absolutely positively got to blow away every MFer in the room, except no substitutes. My number five is Jackie Brown.
Tarantino's most underappreciated movie.
That's right. Yeah. Quentin Tarantino, of course, adapted from the novel by Elmore Leonard. I think it was called Rum Punch. And I would say, because friends of mine have talked about Tarantino for years, and being a Tarantino lover, I've also kind of become a Tarantino critic. Because a lot of his films seem like he has a lot of ideas and he wants to fit a lot of ideas into one movie. And a friend of mine made a good point. He said, Jackie Brown's like the most coherent and consistent movie he's done, which is very true. And then he said, yeah, that's because he didn't write it. He didn't write the story for the film. He wrote the screenplay, which is obvious because it has his humor and it has his pacing and it has his rhythm, which is awesome. But I think that it's a great example of the type of career that Quentin Tarantino would have had if he just kept on making LA crime drama films, for a subset of an audience that would continue to go back more and more to see those films. The career would have been different, very different, because I think that eventually he would have lost a big part of the audience that he eventually gained because of the bigger movies, more smorgasbord movies that he would go on to make, and it's still making, But Jackie Brown, I think, is the best example of that small, intimate LA crime drama. I think it's got some of the best characters that he's ever drafted or adapted. Sam Jackson, I think I love Jules in Pulp Fiction, but I just love this character that he plays in Ordell Roby in Jackie Brown. Robert De Niro, Bridget Fonda. How could you not mention Max Cherry? Who played Max Cherry?
Robert Forster.
I am Robert. I think I am Robert Forster's character in this movie. I think I'm going to become him. I don't want to be a bail bondsman, but I feel like it just as I get older, this movie just keeps getting better and better. It grows like it ages like a fine wine for me. And so what's that?
And Chris Tucker.
And Chris Tucker. Yes.
That's
right.
Right at the front. Michael Keaton.
Yeah. I mean, once again, of course, the king of casting, Tarantino. That Chris Tucker scene, another friend of mine said, I really wanted to see the Koreatown. They were going to go to Koreatown. He was going to, open up. And I really wanted to see that scene. It's too bad that, Chris Tucker didn't make it that far.
Am I getting in this drunk? And I'm not doing that again.
and then he, a lot of that was improv. The camera shot from the trunk. And he's like, come on, man, we'll go to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. And some side of greens. That'll be on me. He's like, oh man, how long I got to be up in here?
Just like Robert Forster is one of those actors that it's like, you probably haven't seen him in a whole lot of things, but he was a great actor. And he passed away recently. And some of the last work he did was El Camino for the Breaking Bad movie. And then Better Call Saul. And he has a small role in the movie The Descendants with George Clooney in it. But I love Max Cherry. He's one of my favorite. Yeah, he's the father-in-law where the boyfriend starts making fun of his dementia-hindered wife, and he's just like, "I'm gonna punch you," and just decks the kid in the face.
Totally different. He disappears into that. Totally different. Yeah.
I think Jackie Brown's great. The music, just getting lost in the whole entire feel of that movie. Love it. How about you, Matt? What's your number 5?
Number 5 is it's a movie called Let the Right One In. I love this movie. It's a Swedish movie about this little boy, this 12-year-old boy who gets a neighbor, this little girl, who seems kind of off because she like kind of always wants to stay inside of her house, and it never doesn't go to the same school as him, and doesn't ever really go outside. Only time he ever sees her is at nighttime. And then I'm not spoiling it, but then you find out that, oh crap, she likes to drink blood, and she's really strong. And is she a vampire? And it was interesting because I remember watching this movie, and this was right around the time where like Twilight was still like a really, really big thing. And then the people online were like, okay, like another vampire movie, except this one's just gonna have people talking. I don't understand what they're saying. But no, this movie is fantastic, and this movie is very, very dark. I don't think you laugh like once in the movie. It's just a vampire, and it's a vampire movie set in this like extremely snowy Sweden, but it's so much better than 30 Days of Night, which I think was Alaska or something. Like it was just, which is also another. That's an interesting vampire movie, like set in the snow. But Let the Right One In, also a fantastic book too. But Let the Right One In is just so interesting and cool. And I mean, the internet is kind of harsh on the American remake. I think that was with Matt Reeves, Let Me In. I think that was Matt Reeves, somebody. But I just love this movie. I just love Let the Right One In so much. It's fantastic. I think everybody should watch it. Like, even if you don't like subtitles, I think everyone should watch this movie.
Okay.
Like Shane, actually, like I think that was one of the first movies I ever watched with Shane.
So at Film Club, our freshman year, Matt did a special series on foreign language horror movies and showed The Devil's Backbone from Guillermo del Toro and Let the Right One In. And I own both those movies, and I only saw them because Matt showed them at Film Club for the first time when I saw them. So definitely, that's an awesome one to watch.
Yeah, it's a really good
There's
movie.
so many foreign films that I haven't been exposed to, and I don't mind subtitles. I kind of like it. I almost treat it almost feels like its own. It's not its own genre, but it feels like its own. It actually, the experience of reading, it doesn't affect how I feel about the the actors' performances or anything being shot. I actually seem to really enjoy some of the film. If the film is good, the subtitles don't bother me, and that's something that turns away a lot of moviegoers, especially American moviegoers.
Yep.
The
Because we're lazy. Like, my thing about subtitles, it depends on the film, because if it's a very visual film, then it's tough with like trying to make sure I'm getting every detail in the shot, and also making sure that I'm reading everything that's in terms of dialogue. But like, it is what it is. It's like, deal with it. It's better than dubbing, especially like, I hate live action dubbing. It's terrible. And so we see you, Matt. But definitely check out Let the Right One In. My number 5, going back to the Coen brothers, and how I mentioned before, there's 2 kinds of Coen brothers movies. I already talked about like the dramatic one. Now my favorite comedy of theirs is The Big Lebowski. And just how it is able to be a noir film, which it is. He is basically a private detective dealing with the weirdest group of characters from top to bottom in a movie, and just the performances for every single one of those characters, from like Philip Seymour Hoffman as just this nervous, like schmoozing assistant, to the Big Lebowski, which I can't remember what the actor's name is, but like even him, he's hilarious. And he's like, just just, it's like the hippies lost, go get a job, sir. And like even Tara Reid, and like she has like a small role in it, but like obviously the big characters like Jeff Bridges is just amazing, and he lived to be the dude. You just feel that character as Jeff Bridges, and then John Goodman as Walter Sobchak is one of my favorite supporting characters in any movie because he is just off the wall and just like, am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the rules? And just like pulling a gun in a bowling alley over a fault during a game of bowling, and just like Steve Buscemi just being like, what do you say, Walter? It's like, you're out of your element, Donnie. You're like a child who wanders into a room. And just so many great characters.
Yeah.
You can argue like the movie's not about anything, but like just the journey that you go on with those characters is so great, and it's hilarious and inspired. And the gutter ball sequence is one of my favorite scenes in any movie, with Kenny Rogers just dropped in to see what condition my condition is in, and just the whole like fake porno movie gutter balls with him and like his janitor and like in his plumber's outfit and like dancing and all the pins and everything. It's just absurd, and it's funny, and the acting's great, and it has mystery, it has laughs, and just the most Coen Brothers movie I think the Coen Brothers have ever made. And it makes sense that nobody saw it. And now it's like one of the biggest cult films, and they have a whole entire religion and day based off it. Dude abides. And it's just, that's it. Big Lebowski. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. No, it's so much to say about that film. You mentioned how they have their dark, serious films, and then they have their comedies. Some of their comedies, there's always this feeling of like nothing matters, in their comedies. And Big Lebowski, they do an amazing job of like, crafting this movie that you have so much fun with, but at the same time, it does feel like they're also kind of throwing the movie away, at the end. Like there's still, like these characters still have to go on, but they're throwing this away. Burn After Reading is the other one that really feels like we're just going to toss everything out now, Did any of this matter?
Just the ending of that movie with J.K. Simmons and just being like, what a cluster cuss. Just like, what is this? And the ending of that movie is so on the nose because he even says, what was the point?
Right.
And like
exactly.
He literally says it. The Big Lebowski's just like, you're back with Sam Elliott, the stranger sitting there. He's like, you have to cuss so much, dude. And him at the end, he's just like, there just might be another Lebowski coming along the way. But I felt bad for Donnie though. And just like how it just wraps up there. And the thing is, dude, all the things that happened to him in that movie, he's still the dude. Mm-hmm. And I think like that character is, you could argue it's Arrested Development, but like, I think the idea is he is such a perfect person in himself that he is really unaffected by the cruelty in the world and the horrible things that go on in the world, which is why they have like that strange underlying talking about the original invasion of Iraq and like the Gulf War and stuff like that. It's just like these terrible things are going on in the world when this movie's taking place, and that he's just the dude. He's using like a credit card to pay for a gallon of milk that costs like 50 cents.
He's using a checkbook.
Oh, checkbook. Oh no, he had the loyalty card That's what he puts out. And then he writes a check for a gallon of milk. It's
Yeah.
just, he's one of the most perfectly realized characters, I think, in a movie. And he just, in the end, he's still the dude. Loves the bowl. Yet we never see him bowl.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, is that true? We never
It is
actually
true.
see him bowl.
Nope.
He's got it in his hands in one scene, but he never actually throws it. Oh my God. Well, that's perfect.
So there's the Big Lebowski. That's my number 5. We're getting close. What's number 4?
For me, let me take a look back at my list. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So my number 4, believe it or not, is The Wolf of Wall Street. I am, it's so funny that this is the only Scorsese film that's on my list. And there are lots of reasons for that. One of the reasons is I think Scorsese, he is one of my favorite directors. As far as character studies go, Taxi Driver, is one of the greatest character studies. He's so good at character studies. Why is Wolf of Wall Street, out of like Raging Bull and Gangs of New York, why Mean Streets, why? So Wolf of Wall Street does something for me that no other movie on my list, no other movie I've ever seen does. Because in the first 30, 45 minutes, I find myself kind of going along with all of this kind of materialism that's kind of being thrown in your face, the sort of the excess and the indulgence of it. And then there's that scene on the yacht with the FBI agents. And I have to be, it does something to me. That scene is one of my favorite scenes. And when he starts throwing the money over the edge of the yacht, something really primal inside of me happens. And I go from being like, oh, okay, this is nice, to I just want to see this guy go down. I just want to see him go down. And the way that they shot that scene, and the dialogue, and how he gets closer to him, it just kind of goes into me like a slow knife. And then when he throws the money over, I'm just like, that's it. Because I gotta be careful. I'm like, it makes me that emotional. And so it also makes me laugh at the absurdity. Jonah Hill is hilarious. He's kind of like the Joe Pesci character from Goodfellas. In a Wall Street movie. Right. Oh, yeah, Steve Madden. Yeah. So there's that movie. There's so many good things in it, and Scorsese's just obsession with filmmaking. There's so many shots. He uses so many shots. He shoots so many things that he doesn't have to shoot. John Bernthal.
Oh my God.
His character lifting weights in the front yard. Hey Ma, we got chicken or what?
Yeah.
Like that. Like he didn't need to. That doesn't need to be there. But it just like I love it. And so I've spoken with people who hate this movie, who totally are down on it, and I can see why. But I totally get what Scorsese and DiCaprio are trying to do, which is basically fill up that cup until it just spills over. And what's very interesting is from a social psychological dynamic is that I've spoken with people who are inspired and motivated when they watch this film. And I don't get inspired or motivated. If I do, it's to do something else. It's to go and appreciate my parents and people in my life who had to work really, really hard to provide the life that I had as a child. And so it's a super personal movie for me, super, super personal. And it's fascinating to me that people walk away feeling motivated, by it. And like, whoa, so it's, very interesting.
I feel like that's one of those things where I feel like the movie, at least for what I take away from it, like the movie might have like a meaning that I think is what the movie is supposed to be about, but then some people take it in a completely different way.
So when you say the thing about the motivation thing, it's like whoa, okay, like you took it almost like when people watch Breaking Bad and like the main character, like Heisenberg, like no, he's not a hero. It's not really supposed to like get from him. Like I don't know. It's interesting that you say that people get motivated.
Like
It's like whoa, or Joker. Yeah, it's like wait, guys, this is like you see the rise and the fall. Are you only watching the first half? Like what's going on? Like
well, and the worst part is there's no real fall for Jordan Belfort, is there?
oh yeah, true.
At the very end,
Right. And that
Still-
last the
still
last
70
shot.
out of 10. And I can't believe a 60-something-year-old, 70-year-old man directed this movie. Like
Yeah.
just the energy and just this would, if you had no idea who directed this, you would expect some like young upstart director coming out there like going full bore on this, and just no, it's Martin Scorsese. He's been making
Right.
movies for decades, and he can come out with something like that. And
Yeah.
just, and then his next movie after that was Silence, which is completely like whoop.
The movie that he wanted to make for like 35 years or something like that.
I love Silence. Silence is one of my favorite Scorsese films, which nobody saw. So,
I need to see it again.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Wolf of Wall Street hit you in all kinds of ways.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
Oh yeah. It'll continue to hit me, I think, for the rest of my life. You know. So
Mhm.
back to the reconnaissance.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was winning for Dallas Buyers Club and then spending 10 minutes with Leo in Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
What's your number 4, Matt?
I gotta go Stand By Me.
I have never
Stand
seen
By
that.
Me. That movie is great. Number one, because also if you guys notice, like a lot of the movies that I picked actually have like those random like monologue moment type things where someone's just this really impassioned thing that they have to say, and it's probably if they probably on the screenplay it was probably like a page long worth of dialogue. Like I love. There are so many interesting random things that happen in this movie, and it's like it's a very like this thing happens and they try to get here, and then the thing that they want to happen doesn't actually happen, but it's okay because they have like the journey, and then like they go back and then they go home and then that's it. And that's kind of like nothing super crazy happens, you know, aside from maybe a couple of moments where Child Protective Services should have been involved. Besides that, like there's nothing like
This was a different time, Matt.
exactly.
Kids could go out and do whatever they want. They had to go outside
and hang out with dead bodies. It was 60s. Yeah, no, like that movie, like Rob Reiner, like he really did an awesome job. I don't know. I think that like River Phoenix, and then like Corey, like Feldman, yeah, Corey Feldman. Like there's like so many interesting tiny little moments where people are just like talking and they're kids. These are child actors and they're acting like so earnestly and sincerely, and like when they cry, like you feel like you want to cry, or when they're like sharing stuff about their life or what they think about adults, and like they say that like yeah no like well if your mom and dad are too crap or too drunk or too dumb to realize how awesome you are, then I guess it's my job and I'm gonna push you. And kind of like a Good Will Hunting, like I'm not gonna let you just stagnate here. Like there's so many awesome cool moments, and everybody has to kind of like share the screen, but then they all share it extremely well. I also really like movies like that too, where there's like a lot of characters. It's not just, you're not just following one person, we're following like a lot of people, but like the spotlight is really like economic in that way because everybody kind of has like their moment, and it all kind of, and no, there's not like a single person. I feel like, what was that movie? I think It had like one or two characters where it was like that, where it was kind of like you have like a bunch of characters and maybe like one or two kids that were kind of like, like they were there, you know, it's okay. But like every single character in Stand By Me, they brought something to the table, and it was either funny or serious or kind of or inspiring or kind of like it was like gross or like frustrating. Like there's like really a lot of awesome moments in that movie, and it's just I don't know, it's really good. You guys have seen Stand by Me probably. I'm happy.
Yeah.
I have not. I need to see that.
I will definitely give me your address after this. I'm going to I'm going to FedEx you my DVD.
You're gonna run straight down to my house and
without my mask. No, I'm kidding. I'm not that guy. Look at Shane. He's like, no, but fantastic.
Mask Police.
Yeah.
I love Stand By Me, and it's shocking to think like that's a Stephen King adaptation,
Mhm.
oh really?
because based off of The Body, and it's what happened to Rob Reiner as a director, because like,
Yeah, like, he's
I
done a
feel
lot
like
of really cool
after A Few
stuff.
Good Men, because like through the 80s in the early 90s he was killing it. This is Spinal Tap,
He did Princess
Few
Bride or
Good
no? Who
Men,
did Princess Bride?
Princess Bride.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
like all those movies are Rob Reiner. Mad Max from Wolf of Wall Street.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
How'd you spend $20,000 on one dinner? What did these sides cure cancer? Just
That's
like
ridiculous that they cured cancer. Yeah.
thought he was gonna strangle Jonah Hill in that movie. But like Stand By Me is great. So this is a very different kind of movie for my number 4, where that's a small, intimate coming of age story, and this is one of the biggest movies ever made, and it's Ben-Hur, the greatest faith-based film ever created, because honestly, most of them are terrible, and spend so much time trying to push the messages of faith, which, I'm not saying is inherently a good thing or a bad thing. It's just you don't see a lot of films that are so centered in faith put this much effort into filmmaking. And this is like one of the crown jewels of golden age of Hollywood. Because 11 Academy Awards, it set the standard.
Wow.
This, Titanic, and Return of the King, only films to ever win 11 Academy Awards. And this earned all of them. This has one of the greatest action sequences in the history of cinema. That chariot race is something that is incredible. Even George Lucas wanted to recreate it in Phantom Menace. The whole entire pod race scene was very much influenced by that chariot race. And this is going to sound weird. My favorite actor of all time is Charlton Heston. And he is the like gold standard of what a movie star is. The presence that he has on screen is commanding. And like, does he have the most range? Did he show the most range in his career as an actor? Probably not. But when you can carry a almost 4-hour movie on your shoulders and be intense and passionate, and the rise and fall and the trials of Judah Ben-Hur is one of the most epic things ever put on screen. And just that film from William Wyler's direction is just grand in every sense of the word. From the naval battles and to the chariot races, and from the intimate moments and just the powerful moments between a man being betrayed by his best friend, who are put on opposite sides because of their countries and their religions. And it's just epic. That's one word. If you had to describe it, it's just an epic in the most perfect way.
Right. They shot that in 70 millimeter or 65 millimeter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. No, I remember because when they did the Hateful Eight for 70 millimeter, they mentioned that. That's good. And I was about to, I mean, I'm going to sound dumb anyway sometimes, but I thought, who was the director for Ben-Hur?
William Wyler.
William Wyler. Okay. In my mind, I guess, did Kubrick do Spartacus?
Yes.
That's why? Okay, that's why I was like, oh, that's Kubrick. No, because it wasn't Kubrick. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, because William Wyler, I believe, directed the original silent movie version of Ben-Hur and then remade his own movie.
Oh, crazy. That's what yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, talking
Because
about remakes.
yep,
Yeah.
it's a spectacle, and like this was a different time in movie making. Like this was the height of like Hail Caesar, the Coen Brothers movie. This
I
is
like
what
that
that's
movie.
about. Let's be real here. Hail Caesar is Ben-Hur. That's what it's trying to like capture that moment in the history of cinema. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, you talked about faith too, faith-based with that scene with Clooney toward the end.
yep.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I like that movie. I really liked Hail Caesar. So okay, I've got to see. I know I've got to see Ben-Hur. You said it's 4 hours.
It's somewhere in between 3.5 and 4 hours.
Oh my!
Like
I watched Lawrence of Arabia with my grandfather recently, and my grandfather's funny because he's an academic, but at 92 he doesn't have a whole lot of time, to like he's like it's like yeah I get it. It's a big desert, but can we move on? It takes him a while to get through that desert.
David Lean's direction, though, that's some impressive cinematography and direction in
Yeah.
Lawrence of Arabia.
But
But
that just goes to show a different time in movie making. You can
yep,
have a 3.5 hour, 4 hour movie. Insane.
top three.
Yeah. Matt, did you have anything you wanted to say about it? Did you see Ben-Hur?
I've never seen Ben-Hur. I've never seen Ben-Hur. I feel like we have to. I don't know how we're gonna do this, but like we have to figure out a way to like watch, like screen share or something. We have to figure out a way we can like watch movies.
You can easily do that in Zoom.
Oh,
we
right
can do.
on.
Yeah,
So we have to do that. We have to do
like
that.
I show videos in meetings all the time.
Oh, nice.
So like
Right.
if I think if like it's on a streaming site or you have a file of it, like a digital file, you can just share screen and share audio, and you can watch something together on Zoom.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
I'll see you guys tomorrow. Same time.
I'll be at my mom's for dinner. Okay, so we're at top three, and
Top three.
we're already 2 hours and 45 minutes in. So
That's right. This is the Lawrence of Arabia podcast, right?
yes,
Yeah. Come on.
We already rename it.
Stick with us. Stick with us through the desert, people. Top three, huh? Okay, so number three for me, is Pulp Fiction. And, this is a movie, I was just talking, I think I was talking with you, Shane, before Matt came on and before we hit record, that Pulp Fiction is a movie that kind of acts as a vehicle for you to sort of drive your way through the rest of Tarantino's filmography.
Mhm.
It's the movie that a lot of people kind of discover first. And even if you didn't discover it first, you go back to it because it's so important to who he became and what his career became as a filmmaker. Pulp Fiction is the movie. A lot of Tarantino's movies make me like want to watch other movies and make me appreciate other cinema even more because he pays homage to other movie stars and movie directors so often and other things in pop culture. And I think Pulp Fiction is one of the best examples of that. And so he gets me to like be excited about movies again. And Pulp Fiction it always gets me excited about films again. And I've seen it so many freaking times that I think I'm like I said, like now I can kind of pick out flaws in the movie, things that I would have changed, but instead of getting into that, what I'll say is just, John Travolta as Vincent Vega, Samuel L. Jackson as Jules Winsfield, those two sitting at the diner eating those pancakes. Every time that scene comes on, I'm just like, I'm home. I'm home. It doesn't matter where I am in the world. I'm home. As soon as the camera kind of goes in on them sitting there eating the pancakes, like I'm just, in that dialogue, you want some bacon? I don't eat pork. What are you, Jewish? No, I just don't think on swine. That's all. You know, pork chops taste good. Bacon tastes good. Yeah, I wouldn't know because I wouldn't eat the filthy motherfucker. I mean, like that is just dessert for my ears. And there's so many, and there's something incredibly romantic about Uma Thurman going out with John Travolta, those two characters, because you know he's supposed to take her out, but he's not supposed to have feelings for her. He's not supposed to, and if he does, he sure as hell not supposed to act on it. That's his boss's wife. And so there's something, I don't know, sexy about that to me. There's just something so sexy about that whole situation. And there's so much to talk about in that one film, but it just, that light that comes from the briefcase is just emanating off that movie for me for the rest of time. And so Pulp Fiction's my number 3.
Have some thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk more about that movie later, but
we'll save it then.
It's a really good movie.
We'll save it then.
Agreed.
Matt, what's your number 3?
2001: A Space Odyssey.
That's also my number 3.
Holy moly, here we go. We finally got one.
We're just going to talk about it. Go ahead,
got
Matt.
a mirror. Very good.
Let me see. Okay, so 2001: A Space Odyssey. I think I watched A Clockwork Orange, and I was like, okay, well, let me watch The Shining, and then okay, well, he did like a really weird sci-fi movie. I think in the '60s. Yeah, wait, let's just try it out. Let's see what goes on. And then like I'm watching it, and then first like that whole thing with like the dawn of man, like all of that, where it's kind of like ancient, I don't know, like Neanderthal, not even before Neanderthal, whatever, like where they're trying to learn how to use a tool. And like the moment you get like, oh, like that's what's going on, like that's kind of like that's supposed to represent like progress and learning. And then also you have like this like mysterious alien force that's kind of like setting that into motion. Okay, that's interesting. And you zoom like, I don't even know, to whatever the hell year like they're in, but then you're in like this futuristic, like just whatever you imagine sci-fi to be, like that is sci-fi. Like you are on like this spaceship and you are in the future, and then people, and it's not just like astronauts, but it's like this society or whatever, like this is how like they live. And I think like there are things in that movie that like inspired stuff that we have today, like smartphones or like smart TVs, like tablets. Like, yeah, Shane, like what are they? Well, how does it go?
The tablet in 2001: A Space Odyssey was used as evidence in a Samsung Apple case because Apple tried to make a patent for the rectangular tablet with a screen. And Samsung used 2001: A Space Odyssey and was like, you didn't make that. This was in a movie in 1968, so you didn't invent that. So, like, literally, Arthur C. Clarke revolutionized technology because, like, he co-wrote it with Stanley Kubrick. And, like, that, it's obviously we're not living in space, and it's 19 years after 2001. But, like, they predicted so much actual things. It's kind of crazy technology-wise.
There's so many beautiful random things. Oh, I mean, Alex. Wow.
No, that's okay. No, I was gonna say, my joke about like, did they make a book out of that? This is the one time where I could ask that. Correct me if I'm wrong, and you'd go, yes, they did, because he wrote the book at the same time, right?
So basically, they came out at the same time.
Okay.
They wrote the film and the book together.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
Arthur C. Clarke is the author on the book, which Stanley Kubrick contributed to. And then Kubrick is the main credit on the screenplay, but Arthur C. Clarke wrote it with him. The book is a lot more concrete in how it explains things, which Arthur C. Clarke's novels are very technical. He's like a Michael Crichton, where it's like, it's very technical and techy kind of science fiction. But like obviously Stanley Kubrick doesn't agree with stuff like that, so he made one of the most abstract climaxes of a film ever. And
Which brings a tear in my eyes, by the way. Like when I first saw that movie, like I actually, because of the music and the visual, I actually cried. Like, and I'm
Really?
okay with saying that. Like, yeah,
For the
Space
ending?
Baby. Yeah, the Space Baby.
the Star Child, yeah.
It's like,
Wow.
it's just, I guess I just kept thinking, because like the whole thing about like, that's the next stage. Like you went from before like man, and then like, I guess I just found it so creative, the idea of like to go forward and more and more and more and more. And that scene where that guy, he's like in the bed and he's like watching himself like age more and more, and then you see like the next stage of evolution. Like I guess one reason why I like the movies is because it makes me think that like you have to be so creative to think of, not just like have a story, but you really need to think about like, I don't know, like you have to have like a very specific, I guess, kind of mind where it's not just like a filmmaker's mind to like it's like to conceive of like what is on screen or to pick the music to go with it. But damn, that's a great movie.
The funny thing is that all that classical music were fillers. They were supposed to make a score. And then Kubrick's just like, nope, we're keeping this. The music when the monolith appears is some of the most unnerving music in any movie. The one shot, which is my favorite shot in any film ever, is when that shot up at the monolith as it's lining up with the sun during the dawn of man, when the ape finally puts its hand up and looks up, and then the camera looks up. That shot is the background on my computer at work. It's just so evocative and just, it's so minimalist, but says so much about what that movie is about. This strange monolith shooting humanity, which the last chapter of the film is Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite, and just shoots you beyond anything we can comprehend. Like that whole thing in that Victorian strange like apartment kind of thing at the end of the film, where a man is literally a passenger in his own evolution, watching himself age through time and then becoming this thing that's not human anymore. And it's just the strangest thing. And of course, then there's Hal, the most terrifying villain in the history of film.
Right. Yeah.
So like, I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. And just, nope. No.
I won't go there. I won't go there, Shane.
We'll be here for another 3 hours. No.
I know. For me, it's ghosts. You know, so.
One of fun fact, Shane, about the Hal, like that Hal, one of the Hal scenes is, you know, like when they're playing chess, like people, I guess like people that are very, very, very good at chess, like if you listen to how the placement goes, or like on like rook to e3, like Hal's actually cheating throughout like that scene. And like if you know that, I love movies where like tiny little details that like it's not even meant for everybody, but if you get it, it's like, oh crap, like the robot is actually cheating before all of that crazy stuff starts happening. It starts to kill people.
So you realize that he's imperfect.
No, I didn't know that. Now, is that revealed? Because it's been a little while. I think the last time I saw it was with you, Shane. We had a little Kubrick festival back in the day. But do they reveal that Hal's cheating, or is that something you have to?
If you know chess, I think you get that he cheated, and because the thing is, if he's not following the rules, then, and if you notice that detail, something's off. And that's what makes it even more terrifying as that film progresses. But like The Dawn of Man is one of my favorite pieces of cinema because don't need a single word. I think I timed it. I think it's like 27 minutes into the film before there's a line of dialogue. And it's just, and even just how beautiful they use the news waltz of just the ships dancing through space. And it's literally dancing. And just with the music, it just feels that way. I think it's the perfect science fiction film. It is like, this is what science fiction can be. So, well, that's both of our number threes. So I think we could go to number two now.
Number two.
So
Well, I'll say that's a film that I think it kind of stands on its own. I've enjoyed. It's weird. I got to be in the mood for 2001. I really got to be in the right place. Whereas I think the first time I saw it, I was amazed. Second time I saw it, I don't know why I couldn't get into it. But I agree in terms of the shooting and the world building. It is just, it kind of stands on its own. I don't even want to put it in the sci-fi genre. It's just kind of its own thing. You know, it's like an event that happened. You know, that's how I feel about 2001. So my number two is one of my favorite freaking movies of all time, man, and that's Drive. So we talked about, kind of mentioned, you made me think about Drive a little earlier in our conversation, because somebody was talking about movies that you expected to be one way, but then you go to see it and it's something completely different.
Stupid trailers.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I can't think of a better example. I thought this was going to be like a Fast and Furious, Need for Speed sort of
So
thing.
did everyone else.
Right, which I'm not even going to hate on, because I don't know, I can watch Fast and Furious with a few friends and some beer, but they're not great movies, Drive is one of the best movies I've ever seen. In terms of, I remember my band at the time. I was in a band in upstate New York, and they said, "Here, let's go see this movie." And I was like, "Oh, all right, whatever." I did not expect to get what I got that night. When when they play the music and they have the opening titles, I went, "What are we in for?" Like, just from those, that the tension in the introduction. And then, of course, the music by Kavinsky. I hope I'm not saying his name wrong.
Yeah.
The electronic song that they play, Night Crawl, with the pink neon letters over the LA skyline. It's just, spending a few years in Southern California, having, ironically, I enjoyed driving away from LA more than driving into LA. Maybe that just says something about me being a suburbanite. But there was something I would always think of driving in and out of Los Angeles. And there's something, the way he shoots LA in that opening is just like, you could tell he's a filmmaker, because Nicholas Winding Refn, I forget what country he's from. I believe he's Danish. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. And that was, I think, I could be wrong, but I think that was his first American movie. And of course, like a lot of filmmakers, he comes to Hollywood. And so you're seeing Los Angeles through this foreigner's eyes. And apparently he had talked to Ryan Gosling about, this guy driving around Los Angeles, listening to pop music. And that's not the movie, but for us, for me, that's the movie. Is you're hearing this very kind of atmospheric electronic pop music going on against this, what is really kind of it's really like a Western, it's kind of like this noirish kind of Western story with, this driver and these, underbelly, scum of the earth characters. And so I did a tiny bit of research that I did for this is Carey Mulligan, Oscar Isaac, Ron Perlman, Bryan Cranston, and Albert Brooks. Those three guys, veteran actors coming in, and never would have expected them. I didn't expect to see a movie with them in those types of roles, especially Albert Brooks. Talk about movie villains. Just he comes off like this, like a good guy.
The comic relief character, basically, from Taxi Driver.
Oh,
who's the who works with Sybil Shepherd, and then
Whoa.
Marlin from Finding Nemo,
Whoa, that's a callback.
which
Yeah.
is like that's the villain of this movie, and he's terrifying.
Wait, who's from Finding Nemo?
Albert Brooks, he's Marlin.
Oh,
He's the main character that tries to find his son Nemo.
who would have expected? He's such just a venomous snake in this movie, and
the crazy thing is, like, there's honor there too. Like, he has rules. He has a code that he follows, and like Ron Perlman's more the cantankerous one, who's like does whatever the hell he wants, and like Albert Brooks makes people pay when they knock things out of order for him, because like he wanted to help Ryan Gosling and Bryan Cranston's characters, but then got messed up his plans, got on the wrong side of him.
Exactly.
And
yeah, it's a very tragic movie, but it's also just beautifully shot. The cinematography is great. When Ryan Gosling they had the violent scene, very violent, by the way. If you haven't seen the movie,
shockingly violent.
And I have to say this because I know you mentioned Logan earlier on in our conversation, and you both talked about X-Men, and you might think I'm crazy for saying this. The scene in the elevator when she looks back at him in horror for what just happened, that is, for me, because I read some of the Wolverine comics, that is the core of that Wolverine struggle, that Logan struggle, and they got it in like 2 shots. And I love you, Hugh Jackman, and I love, I know those movies are hard to make, but they never even, they got it. They got the character, but they got the core of the character. It took them movies and movies to get to that. They got the core of that Wolverine character in that 2 shot. There's some people who watch Drive, who love Drive, who probably never even seen some of the X-Men movies. Don't even care about X-Men. But me knowing that Wolverine character, I'm like, they got it. That's it right there. I don't even think they know. They probably don't even care. But
Well, and that's interesting too, is we could go into a deep dive, but that's why Logan references Shane, because he is somebody trying to put a particular side of himself, his past, behind him.
Okay.
But when it comes out, you don't want to be around.
Right.
At his core, Shane's a gunslinger and a killer.
Yes.
And it's similar, like Unforgiven has that same basic idea, which is why, like, I always wanted Clint Eastwood to be Old Man Logan, because watching Unforgiven and watching him snap at the end, oh my God. I think it's that idea where it's just like something clicks and it's terrifying, and you see a whole other side of someone. And I think that's the driver in Drive, is he really wants to have a normal life.
Right.
But like he has another side of him. And when that happens, it's scary.
Yes, and I'm very attracted to those types of characters. Very attracted to those. And it creates the suspense and Drive is just, it's on fire. It's on fire. It's a car on fire, that movie. And so if you haven't seen it, you gotta see that. Yeah.
We're gonna be talking about cars in a little bit too, but I'm gonna let Matt do his number 2 first.
Yeah, sure. I would say with Drive, when you talked about music, it reminded me of a movie called The Guest, which I think should still be on Netflix.
Oh my God!
Which also has like a very weird electronic, like this hypnotic soundtrack. Yeah, and also both of them are very violent.
Oh, really?
Yeah, highly recommend.
The Guest is like a horror thriller.
Yeah.
Okay. No ghosts.
No ghosts.
No.
Okay. All right. I can do it then.
One
like
very messed up dude.
Yeah, it's like Well, I don't want to spoil anything, but it's a really good movie. It also hinges on like a twist in the middle. My number 2 is The Sixth Sense.
Whoa,
My number
really?
2 is
Got the
Sixth
sham
Sense.
hammer up in here.
Yeah, like that movie. Speaking of twists, out of when I watched that movie, I feel like kind of like when I saw a meme once where someone said, anytime where I feel like I'm losing an argument about why the DCEU is good, and then you see someone opening up like a little chest, and written in the chest it says The Dark Knight as my argument. The Sixth Sense is like my little argument for, yeah, well, I mean, Shyamalan, he made some kind of interesting choices, sometimes, but The Sixth Sense, that holds up beginning to end. That is such a fantastic movie. Everybody in it is, yeah, like it's super terrifying and scary and weird. Also, like, there's like violence, but it's not necessarily like shown, but it's definitely referenced, or it's like you can imagine it, like what happens. Like there's like a scene, like a funeral scene of somebody that obviously something like a misadventure thing happened to a little girl who like passed away, and it's like, well, how did she go? Oh, okay. Like there's so many random things that happen, and you kind of have to like pay attention a little bit, especially because when you finally get towards the end and then you realize everything that happened, and I recommend like rewatching the movie and seeing how everything that leads up to the twist at the end, it actually really does make sense. Like everything you see, they have like a little tiny kind of like maybe like a couple of seconds of callbacks at random scenes where it's like, oh yeah, maybe like there is something paranormal going on. But then it's like, oh crap, okay, like that was meticulous. Like Shyamalan did an excellent job. That screenplay, Bruce Willis as the child psychologist. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to be like a psych major. I was like, oh damn, like this is like dope as hell. Like it's so cool of a movie, The Sixth Sense. And I think it got nominated for Best Original Screenplay, I think. And who was the mom? Was that
Toni Collette.
Toni Collette? It was? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And then obviously, Osment. Like there's so many awesome moments in that movie. What do you guys think of Sixth Sense?
I'm shivering over here. You got me sure because you got me because some of those scenes. One thing I'll say about Shyamalan, man, is like I'm not a big fan of him, but there's clearly a feel and a tone to his movies that are incredibly unique to him. Even with the ones that people, don't like, but there's clearly, like, if you think of Signs, Sixth Sense, The Village, there's clearly like a feel to his films that are uniquely his. He's not just like trying to imitate Hitchcock or trying to, scare people. Like there's clearly a tone there that he has. The Sixth Sense, just thinking back, I think it would have driven me away from wanting to be a psychology major. Some of the way that people behave scares the crap out of me. Especially I think was it the stepmom that's, I don't want to give too much away, but she's making her, well, screw it, spoiler alert. She was keeping her daughter sick. Like, it's a different type of horror, It's like a different, I don't even want to say it's psychological, but it's something else. Like it's just
turns out that the things that people do are so much more terrifying than the presence of the ghosts in it.
Exactly.
And
yes.
The ghosts showing up is terrifying. Like there's some jump scares in that get me every time.
Like grab with the leg.
Yes, that one. That one gets me every time. And it's just how horrible some of the people are. And there's some the moment between Cole and his mom at the end in the car. Like I'm getting a little emotional just thinking about that scene because it's so powerful, that connection finally coming to light, and like him being able to open up to his mom and just talking about her mom. And that whole scene is just powerful. And it's some of the best work Bruce Willis has ever done. Like, it's Bruce Willis can act when he cares. And like Shyamalan gets that out of him. Unbreakable, Sixth Sense, and like I love Signs. I love Signs.
I'm Mr. Glass.
I love Signs so much too, and I'll argue with anybody about that film. And like The Village has a lot going for it, and then things started sliding. And After Earth was just one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
He directed that with Will Smith and Jaden Smith?
Yep. They didn't put his name in any of the marketing because they didn't want to tank the movie by putting his name on it. But, like, it's terrible. But then The Visit, I'm like, okay.
Making a comeback.
It happened, and I'm like, and then Glass ripped my heart out again. I'm ready to be back on his side. But then he has the show he directs on Apple called Servant that he didn't write it, but it's a really effective, like it really has his atmosphere and tone to it. And maybe it's for the best that he didn't write it, because maybe he should just direct a little bit, because he knows how to build tension and create atmosphere. But I love The Sixth Sense. It's a great pick. Now to go back to Cars, we're going to get ourselves onto the Fury Road.
Yes. Nice reveal, by the way.
I remember being in college and living with when I still lived at home with my grandparents, we had like Encore. So like all those like channels, and they did the action one and everything. That was the first time I ever watched Mad Max was on there. And that changed me, like changed my perspective on filmmaking. George Miller completely changed my perspective creatively and thinking about like, this is something else. And then watching The Road Warrior. And then when I showed up to that theater in 2015, dressed in my leather jacket, sitting in a theater and seeing what he could actually do when Warner Brothers writes him $150 million check to go make a movie out in the middle of the desert for 7 months, and what he made is the most intense, insane action movie ever. Like, it's 2 hours of pulsating, and like, it's a lie to say it's just nonstop action. There are character moments. They're subtle, and there's no exposition in this movie. And I love that about it. You just pick up this world he created. And it has themes of like oppressive religion and tyranny and dictatorships. And there's one moment where I know a lot of people criticize it's like, well, they just turn back around and go right back where they started from. But there's a moment when, like, I even have a poster of Mad Max in my office because I think it's a really impressive theme that it takes the moment to think, what would you do? Would you scrape by and just get by for the rest of your life? Or would you turn back and face the most adversity in your whole entire life? And if you defeat it, you can prosper. It's like, are you going to take the easy way out and limp on? And they turn back around, and then it turned into one of the most pulsating and amazing action sequences in the history of cinema. And there's so many practical effects, but even the CGI is seamless. You wouldn't even imagine, like, I watched specific behind the scenes videos of how much CGI is actually in this movie. You'd be shocked by how much. Because, like, there's one particular scene where a tanker explodes in the middle of, like, a horde of cars. Was one car, that tanker. They CGI'd everything else into that shot.
Wow.
So that they wouldn't blow up anything else. And just the technical filmmaking that George Miller, a guy who was an emergency room doctor, who got inspired to make Mad Max because of the people who got rolled in from like car wrecks and everything, and then the rest is history. And Fury Road, I feel like, is his vision, his unlimited vision. They gave him the money and he went there. And the Junkie XL score is one of my favorite scores of all time. It's pulsating. And it isn't just like giant bombast. There's impressive strings and like quieter moments throughout the score as well. And Tom Hardy, it's like people argue it's like it wasn't even about Mad Max. Well, besides the first movie, he is a tertiary character in all of these stories. He's a myth. Honestly, his stories are told by others, and it fits so well. Charlize Theron's amazing in it as Furiosa. And like
Fountain of Youth too. God, she's beautiful.
And just she's commanding, she's badass, and she goes toe to toe. That scene where she fights Max hand to hand, and just it has so much messaging and inspiring, and just even just from the fact that you sit there for 2 hours, it's the craziest, intense, pulsating action, just to the wall. Love it. Every second.
That scene where like I love movies where it's like, okay, I've never seen that before. That scene where the what is it, the sandstorm, and then it's like the yellow and the red and the blue, and there's tornadoes and there's people getting thrown and cars getting thrown and people like holding on and there's still, and while that's happening, there's still a chase going on in the middle of all of that. Like that didn't stop the chase. Like there's so many explosions. I think like another one comes to mind is like John Wick, where it's like, oh crap, I haven't seen that before. When I saw Fury Road, I was like, wow. And I was sitting next to someone that was watching it, and I remember her leaning over to me and saying like, what the hell are we watching? And I didn't even like respond. I was just like, this is awesome. This is awesome.
That's
what a year later.
Like action film fans, between Fury Road and the John Wick films, we're in a special time for action movies. And just to think like most comic book movies are also action movies. So I think we're in a pretty great time for that. But
did they do IMAX? Was that an IMAX film? Fury Road?
I saw it in 70 millimeter.
For real? Okay. Holy crap.
Crazy. And I haven't watched it yet, but I have the black and chrome where they made it black and white. And like he made a black and white version of it digitally. And which I haven't watched it yet, but I'm like, that must be it's called black and chrome.
Interesting.
So like
because there's the color. I remember the color really stood out to me. The oranges and the yellows and the
you know where he practiced that? Happy Feet.
Oh, he did do that.
2 films before Fury Road were Happy Feet and Happy Feet 2.
Yeah.
Same director. Crazy. And Babe.
That's insane.
He created Babe.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Crazy. Yeah. But cool. Number 1, we're there.
We are number 1. My number 1. Okay. Alex's number 1. Hold on. Wait 1 sec. So this film, of course, is a Quentin Tarantino film. And it is, of course, for me, I wondered if this was going to fall off my list over the years, but as of now, at 33 years old, it is still my number 1, and it is Kill Bill Volume 2. That is my pick for number 1. Now, one of the reasons why we're going to get at least one more film from Quentin Tarantino is because I think that he looks at Volume 1 and Volume 2 like they're one movie. But a lot of people, at least in the United States, still kind of view them as 2 separate films. And if that's the case, which I think for a lot of people it is, they were released as separate films. They were released on DVD as separate films. I'm going to pick Kill Bill Volume 2. And personally, there's something very special there that happens in the last act between David Carradine and Uma Thurman, Bill and the bride. There's something very small and very intimate that happens where the first time I saw the film, I actually was really disappointed and I didn't like it because, kind of like in Jackie Brown, where they're talking about going to Koreatown and, holding up the Koreans. We never get to see that. They're just like, oh, that sounds exciting. When he says now we can go over to the beach like a couple of real samurai and slice each other up before sundown or something like that. First time I saw it, I was like, yeah. Where we go? When are we going to do that? But as time went on, I think it was the second time I watched it when I was in college, it just hit me like, oh man, like there's something so personal being expressed in that dialogue, from Tarantino, I think, and something so personal that just kind of resonates with me in Bill's Superman speech, when he says, Superman, Clark Kent, that's the costume. Clark Kent is Superman's critique on the entire human race. He's a coward, he's clumsy, you would have worn the clothes of Beatrix Kiddo, but you would have worn the clothes of Arlene Plimpton, but you are Beatrix Kiddo. You are a killer. You're a natural born killer. And she looks at him and she goes, yeah. And then she tells that backstory, of how she was pregnant and she found out she was pregnant. And that whole sequence of the film, I think, makes it my number one. It just levels that whole story up to number one, because it could have just been samurai warriors, ninjas running around. But instead it became this incredibly intimate love/revenge love story. And it just gets me right here every time. And so when I came up with my top 10, of course, I have to think, why are these films? These films are so personal to me. I think of every relationship I've ever been in when I see that last act between Bill and the bride. And then if that's not enough, Michael Madsen, for me, this is his best role, his best performance, the best character Quentin has ever written for him. He has so much humility, yet he's a killer too, and he knows how to stand his ground and hold down his fort. As humble as it may be, he knows how to hold down that trailer and protect himself. So there's a lot of really cool stuff in Kill Bill Volume 2. And again, being a QT fan, really big QT fan, I see the flaws in it as well. But instead of going into those, I just say that's my number one. I love that movie.
It's a lot of Tarantino love here at number one, right, Matt?
Yeah. I mean, since that's going to happen, I guess we should just continue it, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, everything you said about Killer Volume 2, just a fantastic movie. It's great. I remember when I watched the first one, I was like, wait, there has to be a part 2, and I had to look it up. Okay, good, there's a part 2. Okay, good. So fantastic movie. And then I rewatched them like later on, and then I was like, okay, yeah. And then I was talking to my dad about it. And he's like, oh yeah, that's the movie that has all those famous people in it. I was like, yeah, this is like a really good movie. I really liked it a lot. And he's like, there's like another movie that guy made. What was that called? I had that guy, the disco guy. What's that called? It's called Pulp Fiction. I was like, well, what's that about? And then I saw that the same weekend that I binge watched both of those back to back for a second time. And then Pulp Fiction is my number one, and it always will be my number one. It has literally everything. Like I wrote a story that, like, I don't know, alternate universe. Like maybe I'll go to California and I'll make it into a movie. But like it made me, when I was thinking of like how can I create a story that's like really personal to me, and like how like the structure of it, because like I like weird like random things that aren't like always like inside of all movies. I like how like Pulp Fiction is story, and it's like someone chopped it up and then like put in a snow globe and then like stitched it back up together, and then like just like threw it at you, and then made the ending loop around. Like I like that. I like the fact that I really do like the music. It's really cool music. I like the acting is really good in it. The ending scene where Samuel Jackson has the gun in his hand and he's talking about like the like I'm the tyranny of evil men, you are the weak, and that's that. Like I'm actually like I wrote it down while you were talking like a bit ago. I was like, okay, definitely make sure that you watch that on YouTube after you hang up from the Zoom call. I just have to watch it again. Like it is, that movie is so awesome. Everyone is so cool. There are so many good quotable lines in that movie. There's so many awesome scenes. Like when Bruce Willis is like looking for what weapon to choose from when he's about to kind of like save somebody, and he go, I think it's like hammer, then it's something, and then it's chainsaw, and then it's like then it's something else, and then he goes, I don't know, samurai sword.
Was it a Hattori Hanzo sword?
Yeah. Is it a shared universe? Yeah. Oh man, like that. There's like so many awesome moments. And then when he goes back downstairs and he meets like, well, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens when he goes back downstairs into that basement. But like, like it's hard for me to recommend that movie to people. And it's like, well, there's gonna be this one scene, but it's cool. Just go along with it. Don't shut the movie off. Just keep going.
Shut your eyes. Just shut your eyes for that part.
It's such a fantastic movie.
I'm pretty far from okay.
Yeah. I'm pretty far from okay. Oh man, that movie. The way that they talk in the beginning, and like, and then like Zed's dead. Like, there's like so many random like tiny things that happen in the movie that where like the characters either sound extremely realistic, or they are talking in a way that's so interesting. It's almost kind of, again, like watching an episode of The Simpsons where like this thing is definitely made by somebody that has soaked up so much media. It's like bursting at the seams. TV, music, television, like other films, like his own films. Like there's like so much stuff that's like crammed into this thing. It's fantastic. Pulp Fiction is so great. I recommend it to anybody that is okay with the F word. Because there's a lot. It's fantastic. Like 8 thumbs up. 8 thumbs up. Yeah, that's my number one.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you heard. Yeah, we should do a whole podcast just on Pulp Fiction.
I'll see you tomorrow.
We could do retro review about Pulp Fiction.
At Shane's mom's house.
We have a packed weekend, guys.
So my number one's very different. So it's actually probably one of the farthest things away from a Quentin Tarantino movie. So I fell in love with movies because of escapism. And that's why I love genre films, being able to get lost in another world. And I don't think we'll ever see another fantasy world like Lord of the Rings. And forever, for my whole entire life, Lord of the Rings, and I'm going to cheat here because I'm going to talk about all of them at once, because they are one film all put together. Just who wants to sit there? I would sit there and watch them all in a row with the extended editions because I own them. But it is the greatest fantasy story I think ever told. And the fact that Peter Jackson filmed this all as one film, all at once. The Middle Earth is so fully realized. Like all the best parts in New Zealand that they can find before they ruined it in The Hobbit and just made it all CGI. And just this world is so real and tangible. I love Lord of the Rings because I think it does literally everything that a film can do. And it might not have the greatest of those aspects, but it does everything so well and perfect for what it is, where the direction is the way that Peter Jackson was able to control this scale of a story with all of these characters and all these places, the production design. Like, I've watched hours of documentaries about how they created the world of Middle Earth. The acting. Out of these 3 films, they got 1 acting Oscar nomination. It was for Ian McKellen for Gandalf the Grey and Fellowship of the Ring. Because the thing is, this is a true ensemble. Nobody needs to stand out because everybody does a perfect job at the character that they're portraying. And there's action, there's incredible effects, and they still look amazing from a film that was made in like 1999 and 2000 and then released over the course of 3 years. And there's love in it, there's drama, there's a little bit of comedy, and it was a good thing that most of the scenes of the comic relief were cut and in the extended editions, because some of them would have taken you out of the movie. But like, some of the characters have such a great sense of humor. There's horror elements, because Peter Jackson started in horror. The scene where Bilbo grasps for the ring and his eyes like turn this crazy black and he's just like, ah! And Frodo scared the crap out of me when I was 10 years old sitting in a theater. The Lake of the Dead with all those ghosts in it was horrifying. Shalab's Lair. Like, Peter Jackson is able to balance so many different elements into one cohesive story. And I don't care what Randall says from Clerks. This is not just one movie of just walking and walking and walking. There is so much more to this movie. And the thing is, Sauron is the perfect example of pure evil, I think, personified in a movie. And then the Ring is one of the most complex antagonists that literally brings the worst out of anyone who has it. And there's so many memorable characters, so many memorable scenes. It is complete. So it won 11 Academy Awards and it was nominated for 11 Academy Awards, Return of the King. It should have been nominated and should have won for cinematography, because the lighting of the beacons that went from Gondor to Rohan is one of the most awe-inspiring shots throughout cinema. And it's just the most epic story, one of the most epic stories ever told on film. And I don't think we're ever going to see something like that again. And they keep trying. They keep trying and trying. Game of Thrones tried to be it. And look how many people hated how that ended. And I hate when people complain about the ending of Return of the King, where it's like, it had like 10 endings. You try wrapping up that story in one nice little bow. Could they have not used fading out to black after each of those scenes and make you think it was ending? Probably not. That's probably one gripe I would have been like, don't fade out after each of those and make people think that this movie's over. But like, just, it's fantasy. It's the greatest fantasy ever put.
I think there's something a little hypnotic about doing it that way, though, where it has more of an effect on you, you know? Because I remember feeling like, oh, I don't want it to end, you know? And
I loved it. I'm not going to complain about it, but I know a lot of people do.
But in terms of like, you know, throwing people off, I see what you mean. Yeah, no, I cry like a baby when I watch the end of Return of the King. I don't care, man. I cry. At least the first time I watched it, I cried like a baby. I watched it again like 8 or 9 months ago. Yeah, I cried like a baby then too. So
and honestly, it had one of the greatest love stories in the history of cinema, of Frodo and Sam.
Yeah, I did think Sam was going to saunter over to Frodo and
Even if you don't want to take it romantically, that friendship is one of the most beautiful relationships portrayed in movies. And because like, Sam honestly could have dumped Frodo to the curb, because Sam's the real hero of the story. Let's be real here.
Loyalty. Yeah.
So,
and sharing the pain of your friend, you know. Absolutely. Yeah.
And it opened the whole can of worms of motion capture performances and launched a career of Andy Serkis, where Gollum is one of the most complex, interesting performances I've seen. And I don't care that they CGI'd a character over him. Andy Serkis is still amazing. So, yeah, you could tell from my list, there's a lot of big, grand films on there and epic in scale. And that's what I love about film, is that I could get lost in it. Because, like, I'm looking at my list and, like, I'm pretty sure the most grounded thing on there is probably No Country for Old Men. And look at how messed up that movie is.
Totally. Yeah.
But this was awesome. So obviously everyone who sits through this whole entire podcast is really going to get a sense of our perspectives on film, and we're going to have a lot more fun with some other ones. We're going to chat about if this is going to be loaded as one thing or broken in half, because we clocked in at a lot of time. That's 3.5. So,
we went to 11. We went to 11.
But I hope you all keep watching these podcasts as we do this. For now, we're going to be on the Wasteland Reviewer YouTube channel. But Alex, Matt, your Wasteland Reviewer, we're signing off. So
Wait, do you do that with is it your right hand or it's your right hand? Are you ambidextrous with your?
No, I'm trying to think of what I'm doing. I usually have my phone in my left hand in case I need like IMDb or something. So then I just like flick the finger across and say, and thank you as always for supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.
Boom.
I'm totally editing it there to